Hi. The next point in our discussion brings me to something that I have seen impact me so closely over the years, and that point is organizational culture. Now, culture in a lot of ways is like perfume. You can talk about it, you can describe it, but you will never find a description which can capture its essence completely. You can give adjectives, but that is never going to be enough to describe what culture is. Culture could be many things: the way things happen in an organization, the overall patterns of behavior, how are people treated, how are employees treated, how are outsiders treated, how are women treated, what are the working hours, are you flexible, do you give work from home? So there are so many things, that will go to define a culture, and even when I include all of them, it's still not going to be enough. So we'll have to stick to what our SBL text expects us to do. So organizational culture is intangible, okay, difficult to describe, and there are models which have done a half-baked job in trying to explain culture, but I don't think any one of them has been effective enough. I mean, in so many organizations that I have seen, and a couple of organizations that I have worked, notably, the culture has been pathetic. What do you mean by the fact that the culture has been pathetic? The manager or the owner only yells at you and only abuses you. The manager or the owner only makes fun of you in front of everyone else. The manager or the owner is not respectful of your time. He barges in on your personal time and expects you to do things for him as if you were some bonded labor. This is bad culture. And this is abusive culture. This is way more toxic. I mean, one could go on and on about toxic, but there is good culture also. I can't define what good culture is, but I have experienced giving employees the freedom to innovate, freedom to scale, subject to organizational limits, giving them flexible working hours, but making sure that the ultimate output is achieved, not having very stringent policies on dress code, yet not allowing any random half-baked clothes to be worn to your office place. Not having sir and ma'am as the culture, but being respectful of people, being respectful of women. I have worked in an organization where it has been said in hiring discussions, and you will be shocked, where, the HR has said that don't hire this person. Why? Because she's a girl. And I said, okay, any is that the reason? She said, yeah, because she will get married and she would want to move, and then I don't want to waste my hiring effort again. Or she will get pregnant because she is married, so let's not hire her. Instead of that, keep her as a consultant so that we don't have to pay maternity. Is this bad behavior? Yes, this is bad behavior. Is this a workaround? Yes, this is also a workaround because of certain laws that the organization does not necessarily want to comply with. So all of this is culture. What you can do, what is your belief, what are the things you feel right, all of that is culture. Now, your SBL syllabus contains perspectives of three different management theorists and how they looked at culture. A gentleman by the name Handy, he had four cultural stereotypes. That is how he looked at culture. One is power culture, power concentrated in the hands of the boss. Most of the Lala companies in India, they could be private limited companies, but yet it is the two owners or the one single owner who decides everything. You have no scope for growth. There is no difference between, in that case, a food grain merchant and a person running a technology company. If their behavior is the same, only one person is running the show, nobody else has any power whatsoever. Role culture, a traditional structure in which jobs are arranged by function and seniority, and each employee has a distinct role and job specification. This, I could see this a lot more in, big fours, where these are all mature organizations, maybe not in the way they treat their people, but definitely in terms of the organization structure. There is a designation, there is a job description for each designation, and you are supposed to abide by that. Task culture is, something that you will see in startups, where it's getting the work done. Or, in the smaller CA firms where I have had the good fortune of working, there there were no defined roles. It was because there was only one person who was running the show, but When there was a peak season job, or when there was an emergency, everyone worked together to get the job done, not really worrying with rank. So I am a team leader, so I will not do this, or I am a deputy team leader, so I will not do this. These restrictions were not there. Everybody had just one objective in mind, that all the returns should be uploaded by a particular time in the day. Person culture is the employee follows a personal ambition in the context of the organization and interacts with the organization as little as possible. These people are known as individual contributors. Say, for example, tomorrow another edtech hires me to do ACCA. All they need is, they need me to make notes, they need me to teach students, but they are not going to interfere in what I am going to do. I don't interact with the org wide teams. I do nothing of the sort. All I do is I sit down and I do my job. I, of course, work with the organizational principles in mind, but I don't interact too much with people. I am an individual contributor in the organization. I'm not a team player in that sense. So these were four cultural stereotypes of handy. I don't know how, I mean, I have been teaching this in BT also for that matter since 2019, and yet I don't know how to pronounce this name. Skyne's determinants of organization culture, artifacts, influences that can be seen. A lot of organizations have a very strict dress code, and honestly, on a certain level, I agree with that. Because, in one of my previous organizations, I have seen men and women wear such horrible clothes, yeah, showing up to work in what can only be described as a night dress, or wearing such short clothes that it is more appropriate for a nightclub than for a workplace. And I mean, come on, yeah, you are interacting with customers. This is not how you dress up. So, defining a dress code, that is the tangible part of the culture. Espoused values. Espoused values means values that you stand for, values that you support, values that are the very DNA of your existence. Those are espoused values. Placing the student at the forefront, not or for example, not mis-selling a course to a student just because it helps you secure a sale, even if it means destroying the student's entire career by giving him a wrong advice. If you are against that, then that those are your espoused values. And basic assumptions and values, this is basically, I would call them tenets, basic rules that every organization follows. Like, these are, non-negotiable. This is there. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And Hofstede's international perspectives. My question is, sometimes, when I'm going through the material, इसमें international क्या है? What is international about it? जैसे ही नाम रखने का मन किया तो रख दिया. But still, it's there in our syllabus, so we'll have to do it. There is power distance. There are, organizations which believe that the longer the distance between the boss and the employee, uh, the fact that they do not get friendly, or that they are not allowed to be close to each other, helps to maintain that balance of power. That's more of how most of the traditional organizations work, which don't have an open door policy, as opposed to that modern startups where the distance between the founder and you is a small distance, as in physical also, metaphorical also. You can walk up with ideas and suggestions, and if they are found to be good, they will be implemented. In my opinion, I have only found this to be present in books. There are ego distances, and your ideas are rarely heard. So this is only for textbooks. It is different in different countries. In Asian countries, for example, there is still that a boss and employee relationship. In the West, those lines are blurring. Individualism versus collectivism. I'm sure some of you have heard it at your workplace. Oh, you are not a team player. But what can I do if the team is barely playing? They are not working, they are doing some other gossip, which I don't want to be a part of. But that's a separate point. Individualism is, where you are only working for furthering your brand or your presence in the organization. That could be something like a person culture thing. Collectivism is people working together, it's group achievement, not individual achievement. Uncertainty avoidance, there are people who love uncertainty, who love risk, who are okay with having dynamic and ever changing plans every single day. I, for one, don't fall under that category. I would like to know what is my next month, next week, next day going to look like. And traditional organizations, have more of this approach where uh, they are more prone to avoid uncertainties by planning in advance. Your culture could be long term, where you are focused on achieving long term objectives, like For example, right now I am okay I'm conducting certain master classes for free on IFRS. Now I'm not earning anything, but I'm spending money for it. The objective is that I will be able to scale it up in the long run and develop an IFRS related course myself. Short term is I want money right now. I don't care how other things work. Masculinity versus femininity. I don't necessarily agree with this classification because I have seen women being very assertive, very practical, and men being super emotional. So assigning qualities to genders is so last season. आपके बुक में दिया है एग्जाम में they don't necessarily ask you to define masculine culture and feminine culture, but today I think the way, most Indian men behave is that they think that being emotional or taking emotional decisions and caring for people is more of a female perspective, and the men are allowed to be rude and shameless and all of that. But I think that is changing. I have worked with lots of founders and men who are very caring and who display those features. That doesn't make it a feminine culture, and neither does being rude with your employees make it masculine. I think this is extremely 1990s thought, doesn't really work in 2025 as we understand it.